Welcome to my channel. It's committed to helping more people hop on the tech sales wave and ride it to more freedom and fulfillment in their life. We've got a great guest today, Davis Dzurilla. I always want to say Dzurilla and throw a Spanish flair, but it's Davis Dzurilla. He's learned a lot about the industry, having interviewed with many different companies in the tech space. So he's going to tell us how to navigate picking the right starting launchpad company when you break into tech sales. And he's going to tell us a lot too about cold calling and how to crush cold outreach, because that's really important in the role. So Davis, I'm excited to dive in. And guys, of course, if you like the video, it'll help because the algorithm loves that, when you throw it a like, and it'll show the video to more people who could benefit from the message. So make sure to give the video a like if you get value, which I think you will. And of course, subscribe to the channel for weekly videos and interviews with great people like Davis. Davis, thanks for joining.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you. Let's dive right into it. What's your personal why tech sales? Because that's a question that anyone's going to get when they're trying to break into technology sales.
Yep. No, absolutely. I hear this question a lot. It's all over LinkedIn. Sales professionals are talking about what is their why all the time. It's super important to have a strong, compelling why. And for me, part of it is I was never a good outspoken speaker. I was always very shy and very conserved as a kid. So going out through my adolescence and growing up, I kind of quickly learned that the easiest way to leave your fear of being shy is by pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And how do you do that? You approach people, you talk to them, you sell, you listen. And that's really what kickstarted and jumped me into the sales profession. Started with boats, learned very young, what the technology in those boats were doing. It was enabling a captain to all of a sudden be able to manage like a 60-foot boat just with the technology. So soon after finishing school, I immediately jumped onto the tech wave after just seeing all these innovations and ways that it's been improving the lives of people. And also the networking. Whenever I was first going through college and speaking with my sales professors, because we actually had a unique sales program at my school, everyone was sharing information. Everyone was collaborating. And I really loved that. So all those things eventually brought me here today.
And so don't you work as a founding SDR now to start up alongside your CEO? And you were telling me that he's a really good networker. Like has that helped you guys as a business?
Yes, absolutely. He's a very smart guy, brilliant. The company is Noetic. He's so well connected through other CHROs and chief people officers that he was able to build this thing with just relying on the peers in his network. So seeing that and being able to take it a step further, I thought it would be a great landing space for me to really learn from him and to hone those skills of being interpersonal, building great connections, and then leveraging them for your own ventures one day.
Yeah, I just brought that up because one thing that's really great about sales and tech sales is that networking is integrated in the fabric of our day-to-day. So we get paid to do it. And our network is the greatest asset we can build long-term. Recession comes, you lose a job, you can lean on your network to fall back and get another job, or you can bring in customers when you are starting a business, like your CEO has been doing. So really insightful. And I was curious to get, your take on your journey, because it seemed like when we talked, you applied to a lot of different companies and you learned quite a bit about what's out there. So what was your journey like breaking in?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very similar to your journey, although I didn't go to one of those big tech companies. I went to a managed services provider. So this was at the very beginning of COVID-19. We were selling everything cloud-based, Microsoft Zoom, Cisco WebEx, Avaya OneCloud. These were all telecommunications platforms. So I was really selling everything. I didn't really have a particular niche to dig into. So after kind of figuring out okay, this is a lot for someone brand new in the SaaS worlds to kind of break into and understand, I shifted my focus and I found an industry in HR tech that I thought was poised to really blow up and to do something great in 2022 and beyond. So from there, I transitioned over to an HR tech company known as HiBob, where I really fell in love with that company because we're in HR tech. We're cold calling chief people leaders, HR directors, HR managers, all people who are very easy to talk to because they love it when you reach out. They're very people person. And I don't know if you could tell, but I also am a very people person. I love talking to people, interaction, sharing those memories and experiences with them. So in my brain, I was okay, I don't really want to cold call a CTO, a chief technology officer, or a CIO, because those people are so busy. They're running around. They don't have time for me to cold call them. But maybe a chief people officer, I know they're just as busy, but they'll be a little bit more caring and they'll give me the time to give them my pitch, which has been what I found.
So basically you started at the most complex type of solution selling with a managed service provider, which is actually where I'm at now, right? And I chose the hard path. I did Oracle, like databases and platforms and cloud, Google platforms, cloud, hundreds of tools, and now a managed service provider that implements these solutions. And it is kind of like, it really takes an effort to connect the back end, like what seems like fairy dust, to business value versus SaaS, which is so much more straightforward. There's clear pain points for a specific line of business like HR. And like you said, I mean, that's something I didn't think about until talking to you, but HR people are a lot easier to talk with, and I also would think like selling SaaS to salespeople, they get the game. And I found when I reach out to salespeople, they actually are a little more receptive because they understand how it works. Mm-hmm. So basically, were there other factors that you considered when making the shift into SaaS, and like why was that like super intriguing to you beyond what we discussed so far?
Yeah, just really a lot of what we discussed so far, and being able to grow my network and be in an industry where I'm going to be for a long time, so I can continue to stack on those skill sets, so I can learn all the other players in the industry, my direct competitors, what their offerings are, what my people's pain points are, and then really just continue to go on that trajectory of just becoming a knowledge matter expert on what HR tech means for a business and the value that it can add like long-term for the people's satisfaction.
Yeah, I like that you have a long-term perspective, which is really important. When I started at Oracle, I saw folks leave within a couple of weeks for another shiny object or job, right? But I could tell you're committed to developing your skills, becoming an expert in your industry. And that's also like how you make the big bucks long-term, I feel.
And it's how you have the most fun too, because I don't have to relearn new personas. I can kind of stick to my bread and butter. I jumped into Noetic and I knew all the personas. I knew most of the pain points, and I was really able to just kind of jump right in and quickly ramp up to bring my team a lot more success right off the gate.
Yeah, I'm sure you can rinse and repeat and just create those repeatable wins, which is actually really important in sales. One thing I've learned in cloud is the way to not be successful is you have a million solutions and to try and sell everything or sell to every type of customer. So even if you are in cloud with like these complex backend solutions, it would serve you to be more focused like in SaaS and identify a few use cases and a few pain points to focus in. I'm curious, you're learning about the HR space. Mm-hmm. What are some great companies for people looking to break into tech sales to look at? I mean, I'll throw out Workday, the cloud native HCM, right? And they're a market leader. And then you've got your company, Noetic, but who else?
Yeah, so Noetic is a startup and, a great company to join to work for, but maybe not the one that you want to go if you're breaking right into tech sales. You brought up Workday, which is a great example of one of those behemoth companies that have excellent sales training programs. They have all their systems built out, and you can really learn a lot from those big companies. So you said Workday. I know Oracle is another big one. You're from Oracle too. I know Salesforce has a huge sales program. Same with HubSpot. And a lot of my current AEs have migrated from roles as a SDR at HubSpot or a BDR at Oracle. So those are kind of like the fast track routes, jumping into one of those big companies with the ironed out sales process, because it makes you look super valuable to recruiters and people looking to hire you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I started at Oracle. I knew they'd have great trainings. They had an academy for SDRs. That's always a good sign. And if you look statistically, they have one of the biggest SDR programs in the country and world. Just like Salesforce, there's Cisco, there's IBM. And some of these companies seem like dinosaurs. They're not the latest and greatest startup, but it's what I call a launch pad company. You get that training, build some political capital, get a promotion, and then launch to the next. And so would you say, I mean, you're in the startup game, and I do think it's the most exciting, but do you think the most sound advice for most folks is find that like solid foundation launchpad company with training?
I think so for most folks. I went to a very small college, Plymouth State University. So my classroom size was like 14, 15 people to a class, which was great because I loved having that like one-on-one with my teacher, the same way that I love having my one-on-one with my CEO. My company is about 45 people now. So we're extremely transparent. All the messaging gets through Slack. And I'm not only learning my job of being an SDR, but I'm learning how the engineer team is communicating. I'm learning how our customer success team is handling tickets, and getting that full 360 perspective is why I'm in startups, and why I love startups, because I feel like my business value is noticed right away, and appreciated.
Yeah, it seems like you can really be an entrepreneur at your current startup, and I'm experiencing that now at a startup. And you can really make an impact. You can learn a lot more about the business and get promoted quickly. And I'm sure you've got a great path in front of you at Noetic. So excited to see you crushing it there. And I wanted to transition to talking about picking the right SaaS company. We have an idea so far in this conversation that SaaS is a little more straightforward. It's definitely lucrative, really high profit margins. You get paid a lot, but it's easier to sell, right? So what's your criteria for picking the right SaaS company if you were to advise someone?
Yeah, it's all about the industry. Absolutely. There's so many out there. HR tech was just one of them that was like booming when I was going through that transition, but there's so many more now, especially with everything in AI, fintech, everything in health tech, all of these other startups. And it's important to find one that's recession proof, something that you can still sell, but not to other tech companies. You can sell them to companies that are maybe in the renewables sector. You have to think about like a sector that's also going to do well. So you can sell your product or platform or service to that industry that you just have that feeling is going to be successful.
Yeah. So you're saying focus on something that's recession proof. Another thing I think of is solutions. It's not the, sounds funny to say the sexiest type of solution, but like a cost optimization software for cloud.
Yeah.
I'm in cloud and I see these customers spending a lot of money, and they, especially in a tough economic time, want to be like see clear savings.
Yep.
Or, actually service providers, like managed service providers, as complex as they can be, are good right now because companies are laying off folks, and we can plug in our engineers to fill people gaps at a fractional cost, and it's more efficient. But
sure.
Yeah, I like what you said about fintech and even renewable. You're saying renewable energy. Are there any other, I don't know if I heard you correctly there, but any other like kind of like niche emerging categories that you think could be interesting?
I think one of the most niche ones that we've been hearing all about recently is AI. I just want to see how they can turn all of these, like the Chat GPT. How are they going to monetize this? How are they going to start making money off of it? So finding a way, or a company finding a way to monetize that platform as a service, really emerging in my opinion. So I would definitely keep my eyes on that one.
So, hey, we talked a lot about how to pick the right company and like where to focus. High level SaaS versus like something a little more complex, unless you're super technical. Let's talk about cold calling. It's a critical skill, helping people actually hit the ground running. Yeah. So one question I have for you though, this is controversial. Is cold calling dead, or do you think it is still very important?
I hear that all the time. It's one of those things that's just so repetitive, and I love when people say it. If anything, I hope people keep saying it, because it means there's even less competition for me on the phones. And even looking at some of the statistics out there, like 1 in 4 callers will hang up the second the other person picks up the phone. So just knowing little stuff like that motivates me to make my calls as best as I can, because I know my competition is sleeping. So
yeah, it's such an opportunity to differentiate and do the uncomfortable things that other people aren't willing to do. And that's, oh dude, I love that. It's definitely an opportunity. You said something that 1 in 4 people hang up. Are you talking about an SDR calling a customer, they pick up and they freak out and hang up?
Correct. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I never have heard that.
Yep.
That is, oh my gosh, that's, come on, you got to lean into the discomfort. I can't believe that. That's something.
That's what it's all about, leaning into that discomfort, making your personality known, having those quick intros that are just very transparent and honest with your customer. Because no one likes a cold call, but it's our job. Their company is also doing it. So it's respectable. It's understandable.
Yeah. When I was at Google Cloud, I actually noticed there was not a lot of chatter on the sales floor. I did have, it was funny, a technical person say, hey, quiet down, right? But we shouldn't, you're supposed to have chatter on a sales floor, right? And there was, when you have engineering and sales, it can get a little messy. But I was proud that I made calls, and I closed a $15 million deal moving OfferUp off of AWS to Google Cloud. It was a huge win for Google Cloud, and it started with a cold call. Yep. And the reason it was so powerful is because one of the founders picked up and he said, we're all set. And I was able to challenge his thinking with a data-driven proof point and a case study. on why, Google could help them with their global expansion plans,
Cool.
which was a specific area I knew that Google Cloud was differentiated. And I saw OfferUp doing my research was expanding globally. The point is, on a cold call, I was able to push past resistance and I was able to uncover an objection. Otherwise, in emails, you're casting out a lure and they don't bite. You never know why, and you have no chance to overcome the objection.
Absolutely
right?
agree.
So do you have any other thoughts on like I mean, I guess we've kind of already hit it, but the power of cold calling? You mentioned showing your personality, but it's just, I do think it's the ultimate weapon.
It's getting in front of them. It's quicker than an email too. If I see someone opening up my emails, 7-8 times with the technology that we have, best believe I'm going to call them 3 times that day to see what the reason was they opened. I'm not going to say, hey, I saw you open
3 times,
but what's that?
3 times?
Yeah, I'll do one back to back. So one double dial and then one at the end of the day. And I guess the way to make it seem like less invasive, because nobody likes a double dial, is if they pick up on the second time, I say, hey, Chris, I was about to leave you a voicemail. I'm so sorry about that.
Beautiful.
And it kind of flows into, oh, this person wasn't going bananas and trying to call me back to back, but this person was more like just trying to leave me a voicemail and be respectful of my time.
Yeah, dude, that's such a good insight. I encourage people when they interview for roles, say, I'm not afraid to do the double dial. I specifically tell them to do that to show their initiative. And so you just sometimes have to put that need to be liked aside, and you can always recover on the phone.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you, because you're mentioning 3 calls in a day, double dials. How many calls do you really make in a day or in a week? And let's keep in context that you're a founding SDR. It might be different than plugging into like, a big enterprise, and different roles vary, but how many do you make usually?
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of talk about this too. I think the industry is still trying to really figure that out. I can tell you the industry standards are 250 cold calls a week, which is 50 a day,
okay,
about 400 emails, and about 200 LinkedIn steps throughout the whole week. But we're talking about cold calls now. So I would say right now, I make anywhere between 50 and 100 a day, depending on if I have the cell phone numbers in my sequences, if I have, the steps active, and if I have a good reason to reach out. And also if I haven't connected with anybody, because if I made my 50th call and I haven't said hi to anybody yet, I'm going to keep running that number up until I get a connect.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to comment on is the importance of persistence and being pleasantly persistent in sales. And it might feel fruitless when you reach out and no response. But I had a deal, my first deal at Oracle when I was an SDR, that was closed revenue. So I didn't fully close it, but I sourced it and I used that to get promoted. And I reached out for 9 months, no response, and it closed in Q4. He finally responded. So it's so important, isn't it? Like just to have little like wins in our head and like remind ourselves everything adds up and matters. It's just they see Davis reaching out and they know to reach out in the future. Yeah. But I was going to ask you, when you reach out and follow up, do you create a sequence or do you have a cadence? Are you multi-threaded? Like, what does it look like when you identify a company? There's some personas you need to hit. From square one to like down the road, what's the sequence and cadence look like?
Absolutely. Great question. And congrats on closing that deal. That is the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
That happens to me where, 10 months down the line, the deal that you've been working for the last 10 months, cold call,
the email, long game.
Then they finally book it. It's like,
It's so important. Patience. It's simple, but it's hard. But anyways, what's your sequencing look like?
Yeah. So, as one of the founding SDRs here at Noetic, we don't have many sequences for nurturing of our accounts, but what we really try to do and be proactive about is whenever we get a reply, we mark it in our calendars. We mark little reminders for ourselves. So we know, okay, this person has very high intent. This person said, don't contact me for another couple of months. And we have all that information compiled in our Salesforce system. And we really pride the Salesforce cleanliness. So that data is kept there and will continue to be worked as it comes up again in the future. We start by multi-threading. If there's a really good high intent account, but we cannot get the chief people officer on the phone and we can't get the HR director on the phone, guess who I'm calling? The HR generalist. And I'm going to say, hey, what's your tech stack? How is everything going? Are you doing people data analytics today? And just to really get those bits and tiny pieces of information. So next time I do attempt to call the CPO, I know exactly what this generalist very kindly told me about their current state.
Yeah, gathering information can be a huge win. When I was at Google, there was a field sales rep that was really successful that actually would intentionally go to lower level technical folks to learn what was going on so they could offer an extremely compelling tailored value proposition to the CEO and say, hey, we've been working with your teams. We know what's going on, and just working up from the inside. I do feel like the top down, though, is usually what I take. You go to the top, the CHRO or the CEO, CTO first. But it's cool to hear that you're willing to be flexible and go to the generalist if needed, and then work your way from a warm perspective to the right person.
Yeah, it's all about getting that information and sounding relevant. And if you talk to the lower level folks and they're willing to give you that information, then it just makes you and your life a whole lot easier reaching out to the other folks.
There's a lot being spoken about in terms of social selling. And I read some statistics on sales reps who use social selling are X% more likely to hit their quotas than those who don't. And who knows if LinkedIn paid anyone to say that? I don't know. But I actually freaking love LinkedIn. And I think it's so great. How much do you use LinkedIn versus, the phone and traditional email?
Definitely. I wish I was more active posting on LinkedIn. Product updates, changes, G2 reviews, those are all great content to post. But what I like to do is I like to connect to, if I'm connected to an HR team, I know the chances of me getting accepted is if they see mutual connections. So what I'll do is I'll connect to a couple SDRs on that company's team, or I'll connect to a couple engineers on that person's team, because those people are very likely to just click accept without really looking.
Wow.
And then when I reach out to the HR director, this HR director sees 4 of their current team members who are also connected to me, maybe making them a little bit more likely to click accept and to add me to their network.
That's a nugget that I've never heard in my 8+ years. It's so smart. Add other people for the optics. Especially the salespeople are more likely to accept. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, the salespeople always accept, because like we said earlier, sales is all about knowledge sharing and sharing the best processes and networking. So if a salesperson sends you an invite, accept them, because you never know where things may go.
So we're going to get to the cold call script that's been working for you. You told me the script and I really liked it, and I've been actually using it myself. But before we get to that, guys, if you're getting value out of the video, of course, give that like button a love tap. It'll show the video to more people who could benefit from the message. I appreciate it. And let's dive into it. Well, actually, no, there was one other question I want to ask before getting into cold calling, because you got to know that you're calling the right people. It seems straightforward, your CHROs and certain personas. But how do you identify the right companies? Like, do you focus on certain criteria to figure out who's the right fit for you to reach out to?
Yeah, absolutely. We like to look for companies who are, it's a given if they're growing, because it shows they have some upward mobility. If they've received any rounds of funding recently, a Series A, a Series B, always great to drop a little note in the messaging regarding that. If there was maybe a role change, if somebody left the company or got promoted, you can reach out regarding that. And then in terms of like the actual company itself, I would say the main ones being growth. And then if we have little bits of their tech stack, like I know what they're using for their HRIS or their applicant tracking system, those are all, and they match up with our ICP, then that makes it a very good fit for me to start reaching out to.
Cool. I just wanted to dig into that before getting to the moment of the truth. Let's do a little role play cold call. So I'm the customer, you're reaching out, and I'd love to hear your script, and then you could walk us through kind of why you designed it that way. So I pick up. How's it going?
Hey, Chris, my name is Davis. So sorry, this is a cold call. You got 30 seconds for me today.
I got 25.
Okay, great, Chris. Well, I really appreciate it. I was hoping I can tell you a story about how one of my customers was able to save $80K by using our tool. Does that sound interesting to you?
That's actually interesting. Tell me more.
Great, Chris. I'll be really brief. So essentially, one of our customers that was using Noetic found that one of their applicant sources, almost like an Indeed, was contributing to employees to leave the company within 12 months. After cutting out this application source, they were able to save $80K a year and invest that money in systems that were hiring and retaining top employees. Does that sound something that could help in your day-to-day?
Yeah, that actually does. I might want to connect you with someone on my team as well.
Okay, great, Chris. Yeah, I can send you a calendar invite. Do you have January 6th at 4 p.m. open?
The fifth might work better. Is that possible? Could you?
100%. Yes, we can be very flexible, and I'll shoot you an email after this, and you can let me know if the time doesn't work there.
Okay, sounds great.
Great, Chris. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Hey, that was awesome.
Cool.
And I liked your phone. It was a nice looking phone. Hey, I've never put anyone on the spot like that. You crushed it. Can you walk us through now the choreography, the different phases of that flow, and why it was designed that way?
So a lot of what my team had been experiencing, and not just this role, but my other roles, is when a cold caller is too vague, the prospect is not going to want to talk to you. This script is changing for me and evolving all the time. This just happens to be the one that me and my team have really embraced currently. Some really great SDRs over there that help me practice the script and really refine it. But it really starts off with like the pattern interrupt. Like, hey, this is Davis. I'm cold calling you. Being honest and being transparent makes it so they're not like, who is this? Why are you calling? They actually know exactly why you're calling. It's a cold call, and you're saying your name and the company you're from. That's it. That's all people ask for. When I would call people and say, hey, Chris, are you looking into IT solutions? And I would just kind of jump into my pitch. I would get hung up on all the time. But really by saying like, hey, look, this is a cold call. So sorry to bug you. You got 30 seconds. People will give you 30 seconds. I'd say 9 times out of 10, they give you the 30 seconds to run with, which is all I ask for. And then I kind of, in this economic climate, me and my team are hearing, oh, we have no budget. We're not adding new tools. Bye-bye. We're not adding new tools. Goodbye. So we heard that objection so many times that we wanted to get in front of it. So we say, like, look, I want to tell you a story about how one of our customers was able to save $80K by eliminating one of their tech tools with our platform, Noetic. Does that sound interesting? Because I can kind of tell that all these HR teams are looking to cut costs. They're all looking to cut tools. If I'm proposing a way for you to cut your tools more effectively, do you think you'll give me time to listen? And more often than not, the answer is yes to that also. So it's really just getting in front of any objection you hear the most commonly, like, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time right now. Well, that's easy. You can just say, hey, is this a bad time? And people always want to say like, or hey, is this a good time? And people want to say no to that or yes to that. And it kind of just like lets you get right in the door with your proposition.
So how often do you run into one or more objections? I was kind of easy, and I love the cold call, and it made sense. There's value. But how often do you run into one or more objections, and how do you typically handle that?
We run into a lot of objections. A lot of them right now are cutting budget. A lot of them are, oh, we're using this tool for that. Oh, we have everything sorted out. And then it's my job as a sales rep to understand, like, okay, great. That's working well for you. Perfect. I'm glad to hear you have something in place. Can you tell me a little bit about how you're doing this and blank? And just by asking those questions, because if it's working well for them, great. It's not my job to sell to everybody that I call to. It's my job to really qualify and make sure that they would be a good fit. So after hearing like, oh, we're using this solution for our HR analytics, I can really dive into, okay, great. What does that look like now for you? How many team members are working on that? Is that process good? And even asking a simple question, do you like what's working for you now? Because you never know. People may say no, or they may be frustrated that day, and give you that information to use for the next calls.
I think too, asking what's working gives you permission to also ask what's not working, especially when in competitive scenarios. How often are you actually digging into discovery and probing deeper versus hooking them for the call to then really dig in for discovery?
That's a really good question. I would say 25% of the time I can really hook them with that and then kind of run along my cadence, tell them the story. And then the other 75%, it's more just like I'm asking them questions about their processes and just doing that discovery on the fly. So like 25, 75%, I'd say more often than not, I'm having to do that quick discovery call to make sure that they would qualify and be a good fit for me.
Perfect. Yeah. And it's really just winning the agreement for the next step. Like in the beginning, you are self-aware, you're cold calling, you're in an interruption, and then you get the agreement and the openness for 30 seconds. And then you're going for the agreement for a call. And you really approach that beautifully. So I wanted to ask you about the typical deal cycles that you have at your company in SaaS. I know there's such a range, right? From one SaaS company to another, or a cloud provider and a platform technology. But how long is the typical sales cycle?
So I think a lot of sales cycles are super prolonged because they rely on implementation and the engineers to fill in the backdrop for this new software that the company is acquiring. Because Noetic has such a quick turnaround with our implementation team, about only 2 weeks, our sales cycles can be fairly short, where I've seen people make that cold call, book the meeting, and then close the deal all within the same month. And that just has to do with our integration speed and being able to deliver value very quickly to the customer without making them sign a contract and then wait 6 months before they can actually use it.
Wow. That reducing the friction of the buying experience is really important. And that's more at an organizational level. But the sales rep can do some things too to reduce friction as well. Like maybe, and tell me your thoughts on it, like whether it's like just being extremely responsive and sharing good notes, but what are your thoughts on how you can accelerate?
Really good point. You just put a brilliant thought in my head. Something that I've never done in other orgs, but I'm doing here at Noetic is on the very first call with the prospects. They said yes on the phone. I booked time on their calendar. That day is here. What are you going to do to ensure they show up to get the most value out of the call? So I always like to send an agenda a couple of hours before the call. Hey, Chris, thanks again for agreeing time. Like discussed on the phone, we're going to be talking about these 4 bullet points. Excited to chat soon. Then once we're on the call, we'll show them the product right away. We'll maybe ask them a couple questions, do some light rapport. Hey, where are you from? All that fun stuff. And then we'll jump right into the platform. In my other roles, it was really just like, hey, here's the discovery call, but you'll see the demo next time. So this is more of like, hey, you get to see the demo. Whatever you want to see from us, we'll show you right away. And that really gets them interested because they're not saying like, oh, you're trying to hide it from me. Like, what don't you want to show? At least from my perspective, it makes the follow-up emails and the second demo call much more easier to be accepted by them once they've seen the whole platform.
So really seeing is believing, and you dive into showing them sooner than later. Like there is something to be said for really complex solutions to like qualify like their use case and their needs to really tailor the demo. Yeah. But it sounds like you guys are really an innovative company and very swift. And I'm taking notes here. So the next question I had for you is around the teammates that you work with to close deals, because sales is such a team effort. We can't do it on our own, especially for more complex, bigger deals. So who are the typical teammates that you partner with to support opportunities?
Absolutely. I'd say first and foremost is my account executives, because we're working hand in hand. I'm sourcing them meetings, but I don't get paid unless they qualify and close the meetings. So I'd say first and foremost, a lot of my sequence building is done with my AEs, value proposition, quick little if I need help with something. And I'm never afraid to go to anybody on my team in any of my roles because I know they want to see me succeed as much as I want them to succeed too. So a funny story, actually, back when I was at my first SaaS job, the managed services provider, those calls we didn't really give to an AE. Those were all engineer to like IT director level calls. And my engineers were always super busy. This was during the peak of COVID. So nobody had time for anything, I felt like. So I would I'd go to Costco and I'd buy huge bags of pistachios and I'd bribe them. I'd say, hey, Ben, you mind sitting on this demo with me today? Here's some pistachios. And every couple of months I'd re-up and I'd buy another bag of pistachios just because I really relied on them, and they were always happy to jump on my calls. But it was just that little extra oomph that really got them to join and to give me their 100%.
Yeah, it sounds like they're willing to go into sales battle with you because you were generous. You contributed to them and just did that little extra, and that little extra can make all the difference, I've found. So really insightful, because you can't do it on your own as a salesperson. You could try and be super technical, but there are just, especially in the business you were mentioning of like managed service providers and more complex platforms, it's just so technical. Yep. So I have one more question, 2 more questions to ask you, and then we can wrap it up. This has been crisp. It's been insightful and impactful. So thank you, Davis. The question is, what do you suggest folks who get their first SDR role to do in their first 30 days to really maximize how, like, their impact and how they hit the ground?
Definitely. So you're an SDR. Congratulations. First 30 days. What do you want to do? You want to become really close with your AEs. Build strong relationships. Let them know, hey, what are you doing after work this weekend? What are some of your hobbies? Learn your AEs on a very personalized level. So they are always, and they'll know you on that personalized level too. It makes work way more fun. It makes work easier, and it makes meeting with them twice a week really engaging and exciting because I'm getting to chat with my friends and also my colleagues. I would say after that, really align yourself with the values of your organization. What do they see for the future of themselves, and how can you help them get there? Very quickly, we did a bunch of thought exercises here at this company where it's sort of like, okay, how do you plan to add value in the next 6 months? And then the other bullet was, how will I know that you've contributed and added your value? So finding a way to quantify what you want to bring to the table and sharing that with your team. Be like, hey, look, I'm going to book 8 meetings this month, and I want to be able to generate 50,000 in ARR. Those are my goals. And having those concrete goals and being at that close relationship with your AEs really just helps you succeed.
That's so true. And I actually do have a video coming out tomorrow on this exact topic. So it's top of mind, and it's right in line with what you said. I just remember at Oracle, it's a monster company, but I built a great relationship. I brought value to them, and then they became my advocates for promotion. Yep. And they even helped me get to Oracle's a behemoth, so many business units. I got to a better patch. So I had another question pop up. So still 2 more, but while I have you, you're a valuable resource here for all of us. So had to ask, just overall, when you looked at interviewing and breaking in that stage of the game, before we're getting to the 30 days hitting the ground running, any key nuggets or things you did differently in your interview processes to stand out?
That's a really good question. I just know how to tell the story of my path, and I think I really knew my why. The companies that I worked for were startups, so the interview process was involved in me speaking directly with the CEO, which can obviously be very stressful at times.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, being able to really articulate, being on the same wavelength, I guess, and asking those critical questions, the same ones that they ask you, just to understand them, has really helped me because I've been able to build that rapport quickly, follow up appropriately, be very speedy. I'm very quick with my email replies. I want them to make sure that I'm prioritizing them, that I really am, only really interviewing with them, and I'm laser focused about it. And then that critical question when they ask you, why us? Just be really prepared to have a thoughtful answer and a long-term answer on why them.
That's exactly what I would tell anyone. One, storytelling, according to statistics, is 6 to 7 times, not percent, 6 to 7 times at least more powerful than data and facts. So when you tell a great story, that brings people in, and it's the gateway to emotion, and people buy and hire emotionally. Yeah. The other thing is why that company, 100%. When I interview people for my current company and I hear how do you find us? They just randomly found us. They hired an admin from a different country to reach out. I haven't seen that. And they're they don't really know what we do or don't have a strong why. It's there's no intention here. Yeah. And I love the final piece you said of long-term. That's something I preach too, is even if you're not planning to be there long-term, which ideally you want to find a company that at least 3 years or more, you can be in the long game, because that pays off. But even if it's not going to be long-term, at least portray yourself that way, that you're looking for the long-term role. So I love that. And another final question before the final question, the penultimate question for sure this time, is again around interviewing. You might not have an answer, but were there any curveball crazy questions that you got? My buddy at Google got how many gumballs can you fit in an airplane? Even if it's just mildly out there. Do you remember if you ever got any curveball questions, or were they all straightforward?
I think they were all really straightforward. No curveballs, no trying to stump me. I don't know how I'd feel about being asked a question like that, but I know it's probably to see how I would go about answering the question and deconstructing it. But no, I have not encountered any unusual curveballs like that. But if one does happen to you and you're doing your interview, you get a curveball question, just take a minute and pause. There's no rush to answer it right away. Take your time, figure out what exactly they're asking, and be honest with them. And I think that's the best way to answer it.
Beautiful. And that's amazing in a way, you didn't have an answer for this, and then you just paused and gave a great insight on how to answer these types of questions, which people should do. Oh my gosh. It's Inception, dreaming a dream. Anyways, the final question now we got there is just about you. What's your vision? How are you going to use tech sales to create a great life. And just like tactically, what are your next steps in the coming years, and where do you see yourself longer term?
Yep, absolutely. Love this question so much because I think about it every day.
Yeah.
And it's exactly this, Chris, like being on podcasts, being able to share my voice. I love public speaking. I love helping people. I love connecting with them. I want to stay in sales. I want to continue to perfect and hone these skills to sharpen my knife, become a very successful AE. And then from there, really just focus on how can I really just like put myself out there, continue to push myself out of my comfort zone so I can continue to experience brand new things like this and to become the best possible version of myself. And I'll find that through sales.
I got chills because I just think we're birds of a feather, and I'm so glad you came on to generously share your insights and your time. Cheers to you being a future speaker. I mean, you are one right now, and just sharing generously with more people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, give the like button a love tap. It's a cheesy line, but it'll show the video to more people who could benefit from the message. And I encourage you to connect with Davis. Is that cool if people reach out on LinkedIn?
Yeah, please
Davis.
do. Questions about cold calling. If you want to send me your script, if you want to send me
I like that.
I'd be so happy to dig it apart, critique it pretty hard, but give you some great feedback that you can then implement for yourself.
And that's what a great coach does that's committed to people's success. And guys, Davis is a great resource. So please be the person to take him up on it, because a lot of people don't follow through. Reach out to me as well. But people like us, we want to help. Any other calls to action, Davis, on your end?
I think I'm all good. I'm going to enjoy a nice holiday weekend with my family. Chris, thank you so much for your time today, having me on the call. I was super excited to be here. And I love what you're doing with the channel. These people are very, very lucky.
Thanks so much, David. And to all you out there, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It's going to be a great 2023. Almost forgot the year. Happy selling and happy living.
Happy selling. Bye-bye.